First contact and subjugation. The stars had always held secrets. Humanity knew this, but they weren't prepared for the secret that arrived in the form of the Nithris fleet. The Deep Space Monitoring Station on Europa was the first to detect them. 7 massive vessels moving with perfect coordination, decelerating as they approached the outer rim of our solar system. Dr. Amara Chen stared at the readings in disbelief. "They're slowing down," she told her colleague. "Whatever they are, they're not passing through. They're coming here." Within hours, Earth's unified government had convened an emergency session. Representatives from all nations gathered virtually as astronomers and military personnel presented what little information they had. The vessels were enormous, each nearly 2 kilometers in length, with a distinctive crystalline structure that defied Earth's understanding of material science. Admiral James Harrington of the United Earth Defense Force stood before the assembly with grim determination. "We're sending a welcome message on all frequencies and preparing the diplomatic first contact team, but I recommend we move our fleet into defensive positions, just in case." The Nithras responded to humanity's greeting by broadcasting a message of their own. The aliens appeared on screens worldwide. Towering beings standing over 3 meters tall with iridescent, scaled skin that shimmered under their ship's lights. They had 4 arms ending in clawed hands and vertical slit pupils and eyes that glowed with an unnerving amber light. "We are the Nithras," their leader announced, its voice a harmonious blend of tones that Earth's translation software struggled to interpret. "Your species has been noted. Prepare for integration into the collective." No explanation. No negotiation. When Earth's diplomats tried to establish a dialogue, the Nithras cut communications. 3 days later, they attacked the Martian colonies. Captain Alina Reeves was commanding a routine supply run to Mars when the assault began. Her ship, the UES Defiant, was a mid-sized military transport, well armed for a supply vessel but not built for frontline combat. "Captain, we've got multiple explosions across Olympus City," her communications officer shouted. The viewport showed flashes of light erupting across the Martian settlement. "They're broadcasting distress signals." Alina's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. "Battle stations. Divert power to shields and weapons. Send an emergency alert to Earth Command." The Defiant approached Mars just as a Nithris destroyer finished its bombardment of the colony. The alien vessel was sleek and predatory, its hull composed of overlapping plates that resembled scales. It turned toward the human ship with methodical precision. "They're targeting us," the tactical officer reported, her fingers dancing across the console. "Energy readings off the charts." "Evasive maneuvers," Alina ordered. "Return fire when in range." The Defiant's engine screamed as the ship veered sharply, barely avoiding the searing beam of energy that the Nithras vessel projected. Their own weapons, railguns and missile arrays that had seemed so advanced just days ago, barely scratched the alien hull. "Their shields are absorbing most of our fire," the tactical officer reported. "We're not making a dent." Alina grimaced. "Target their weapon emplacements. Concentrated fire." The ship shuddered as another alien beam grazed their hull. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Hull breach on Deck 3. Sealing emergency bulkheads." For 20 tense minutes, the Defiant danced around the much larger Nithras vessel, landing occasional hits while taking devastating damage in return. Alina knew they couldn't win, but they might survive long enough to escape with vital intelligence. "Captain, I'm detecting a power surge in their main weapons array," the science officer called out. "It's like nothing we've seen before." Alina didn't hesitate. "All power to engines. Break orbit and set course for Earth, maximum speed." The Defiant lurched forward as its engines pushed to full capacity. Behind them, the Nithras vessel unleashed a sphere of energy that expanded outward, engulfing what remained of the Martian colony. When the energy dissipated, nothing was left but scorched earth and molten metal. The Defiant limped back to Earth, carrying the first survivors of a Nithras attack and crucial data about their weapons and tactics. They arrived to find Earth preparing for war. The United Earth Defense Fleet mobilized every ship at their disposal, forming a defensive line between Earth and the approaching Nithris Armada. Admiral Harrington commanded from the flagship UES Invictus, coordinating with fleets from every nation. They hit hard and fast. Elena briefed the admiral, her uniform still stained with blood from helping wounded crewmates. Their weapons cut through our best shields like they weren't even there. And they didn't attempt communication once the attack began. Harrington nodded grimly. We've received similar reports from the outer colonies. Jupiter Station is gone. The lunar bases are dark. But we've got 300 ships here, the best Earth has to offer. We'll make them regret coming to our system. The battle for Earth began 16 hours later. The Nithris fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel just beyond the moon's orbit, 7 capital ships accompanied by dozens of smaller destroyers and fighters. Earth's fleet opened fire immediately, thousands of missiles and energy beams converging on the alien vessels. For a moment, it seemed the concentrated firepower might make a difference. Several Nithris ships showed signs of damage, their scaled hulls cracking under the assault. Then the aliens returned fire. Beams of coruscating energy sliced through Earth's ships. Spheres of gravitational distortion imploded vessels from within. A quarter of the human fleet was gone in the first exchange. Adjust targeting, Harrington ordered. Focus all fire on their lead vessel. The remaining ships complied, concentrating their attack on a single target. The Nithris flagship's shields flickered and failed. A cheer went up across the fleet as human weapons finally struck true, tearing into the alien vessel. The victory was short-lived. The damaged Nithris ship rammed itself directly into the Invictus, destroying both vessels in a cataclysmic explosion. Admiral Harrington and his entire command staff were lost in an instant. With the command structure in chaos, the coordinated defense faltered. Ship by ship, Earth's fleet was decimated. Belena's Defiant, hastily repaired for battle, managed to destroy 2 Nithris fighters before taking critical damage. "We can't take another hit," her engineer reported over the comm. "The reactor's going critical." Elena surveyed her bridge. Half the stations were dark. The crew either dead or evacuated to escape pods. "Launch all remaining pods," she ordered. "Then set collision course with the nearest Nithris vessel." Her first officer stared at her in shock. "Captain, that's suicide." "I'm staying with the ship," Elena replied calmly. "But you're not. Get to the last pod. Earth needs survivors who've seen how they fight." After ensuring her remaining crew had evacuated, Elena guided the dying Defiant toward a Nithris destroyer. The ship's reactor was overloading, ready to detonate. Just before impact, she spotted an opening in the alien vessel's hangar bay. "Perfect," she whispered, adjusting course. The Defiant crashed through the hangar shields and detonated inside the Nithris ship. The resulting explosion tore the destroyer apart from within. Across Earth, people watched the battle unfold through telescope feeds and military broadcasts. They saw their fleet, the pinnacle of human military technology, reduced to scattered debris in less than 2 hours. When it was over, 6 Nithris capital ships remained, virtually untouched, and began moving toward Earth. The planet surrendered the next day. The Nithris occupation began immediately. Their ships took position around major cities, and smaller craft landed in strategic locations. The aliens established processing centers where humans were cataloged and assessed for integration potential. Within weeks, a new social order emerged. Humans with technical skills were forced to work in Nithris facilities, adapting Earth technology to alien specifications. Those deemed without value were relegated to labor camps or worse. Some were never seen again after processing. The Nithris commander, Supreme Overlord Vexthal, addressed Earth's population through hijacked broadcast systems. "Your species has potential as a resource," the towering alien announced. "Cooperate, and you may serve a purpose in the collective. Resist, and you will be rendered extinct. We have done this 17 times before. Your fate is not unique." But humanity had never been good at accepting fate. The resistance began as scattered acts of defiance, sabotaged equipment, missing supplies, Nithris patrols that failed to return. Gradually, these isolated incidents coalesced into an organized movement. Former military personnel provided training. Scientists developed ways to disrupt alien technology. Ordinary citizens created underground networks to hide fugitives and share information. 6 weeks into the occupation, the resistance found its symbol of hope. Security footage from the final battle had captured the moment Elena Reeves' ship destroyed the Nithris destroyer. The image of the Defiant plunging into the alien vessel became a rallying cry. What no one knew was that Captain Reeves hadn't died in the explosion. She'd found a maintenance pod seconds before impact and jettisoned clear of both ships. After drifting in space for days, she'd been recovered by a covered human vessel that had hidden in the asteroid belt during the attack. Now she was back on Earth, moving between resistance cells, building a force that could fight back. As she stood before a group of haggard but determined fighters in the ruins of what had once been Chicago, she spoke the words that would define humanity's response to subjugation. They think they've conquered us because they've occupied our planet. But Earth isn't just a place, it's us. And as long as humans draw breath, we are not defeated. The Nithras believe they're the apex predators of the galaxy. It's time we showed them they're wrong. The counterattack. 6 months into the Nithras' occupation, Earth was transformed. Alien structures loomed over conquered cities, their crystalline architecture jarringly beautiful against the ruins of human civilization. Massive extraction facilities pulled resources from the planet at an unsustainable rate. The atmosphere had taken on a perpetual haze from Nithra's industrial processes. In the mountains outside what had once been Vancouver, Captain Elena Reeves studied a holographic map of North America. Red markers indicated Nithra's strongholds. Blue showed confirmed resistance cells. "They're expanding the processing center in the former Denver area," said Dr. Marcus Wong, formerly of MIT, now the Resistance's lead scientist. "Our sources say they're bringing in equipment to begin deeper mineral extraction." Elena nodded grimly. "That follows the pattern. Strip everything valuable, then move on." She turned to the others gathered in the underground bunker, a mix of military survivors, scientists, and civilians who'd proven their worth in this new war. "What's the status on Project Achilles?" Dr. Serena Patel, a biologist who'd been working in a Nithras research facility before escaping, stepped forward. "We've confirmed our initial findings. The Nithras respiratory system is unique. They process nitrogen rather than oxygen. It makes them stronger on Earth than in their native atmosphere, but it's also a vulnerability." She displayed a molecular model that rotated slowly above the table. "This compound disrupts their nitrogen processing. In sufficient concentration, it will incapacitate them within minutes. Fatal exposure takes approximately 15 minutes. And it won't harm humans?" Elena asked. "Completely harmless to us. It breaks down in oxygen-rich environments within hours." A former Navy SEAL named Jackson spoke up. "Deployment is the issue. We can't exactly ask them to inhale it." "We've solved that," Marcus replied with the first genuine smile Elena had seen in months. "We can modify standard HVAC systems to disperse it as a colorless, odorless gas. Their environmental sensors don't detect it because it's composed of elements common in our atmosphere." Elena studied the molecular model. "This could change everything. We hit their environmental systems simultaneously across multiple facilities, incapacitate the Nithras, and seize their technology." "There's more," Serena added. "We've been studying their communication technology. The Nithras use a quantum entanglement system to coordinate their forces instantaneously across distances. If we capture one of their command centers intact, we could potentially send false orders to their entire fleet." Hope, an emotion in short supply these last months, began to spread through the room. For the first time, they weren't just fighting to survive. They were planning to win. The operation was set for 3 weeks later, codenamed Awakening. Resistance cells worldwide would strike Nithris facilities simultaneously, targeting their environmental systems first, then securing their communication hubs. Alina would lead the assault on the primary command center in former New York City. As preparations intensified, Alina found herself unable to sleep the night before the mission. She stood outside the bunker, looking up at stars partially obscured by the persistent haze. Jackson joined her, offering a rare luxury, a cup of actual coffee. "Saved it for a special occasion," he explained. "Figured the eve of our liberation qualifies." Alina accepted the cup gratefully. "Do you think it will work?" "The plan is solid," he replied. "But that's not what you're asking." He sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "I think humans are the most adaptable species in the universe. The Nithras conquered through overwhelming force, but they don't understand innovation under pressure. That's where we excel." 17 species, Alina murmured. "That's how many they claim to have subjugated or exterminated. What makes us different?" "We're too stubborn to accept defeat," Jackson said with a hint of a smile. "And we learn from our enemies." The next morning, Operation Awakening began. Across the globe, resistance fighters moved on Nithris facilities with precision born of desperate practice. In Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Americas, teams infiltrated alien structures using knowledge gained from months of observation and intelligence gathered by humans forced to work inside. Alina led a 12-person team into New York through the old subway tunnels. The Nithras had largely ignored these underground passages, considering them primitive and irrelevant. This oversight would cost them dearly. "Environmental Control Center should be 2 levels up," whispered Zara, their tech specialist who had memorized the facility layouts from stolen schematics. 4 Nithras guards typically stationed outside, another 2 monitoring inside. Alina nodded. "Remember, standard weapons are last resort only. Their armor is too effective. Use the acoustic disruptors to disorient them, then the taser nets." The team moved silently through maintenance corridors. The inside of the Nithris facility was eerily beautiful, smoothly curved walls with luminescent patterns that seemed to flow like liquid. They encountered their first patrol at a junction. 2 Nithris warriors towered in the corridor, their scaled skin shimmering under the ambient light. Each carried a plasma weapon that could vaporize a human instantly. Before the aliens could react, Alina's team deployed the acoustic disruptors, devices tuned specifically to Nithra's auditory sensitivity. The aliens immediately clutched at their head crests in obvious pain, dropping their weapons. The taser nets finished the job, leaving them incapacitated. "That worked better than expected," Jackson observed as they secured the unconscious aliens. "Don't get overconfident," Alina warned. "We've got a long way to go." They reached the Environmental Control Center with minimal resistance. After neutralizing the guards, Zara got to work. She connected their dispersal device to the main air circulation system, while the rest of the team established a defensive perimeter. "Initiating dispersal," Zara announced. On her tablet, a schematic of the building showed the compound spreading through the ventilation system. Full saturation in 3 minutes. Throughout the facility, Nithras began to falter. The compound affected them gradually, first disorientation, then weakness, finally unconsciousness. Human workers, seeing their overseers collapse, either fled or joined the resistance fighters, now streaming into the facility. Alina led her core team toward the command center on the highest level. Here they met actual resistance, a group of Nithras officers who had sealed their chamber and were using portable breathing apparatus. "They've adapted," Jackson called out as plasma fire forced them to cover. "Not for long," Alina replied. She signaled to their demolition expert, who planted breaching charges on the sealed doorway. The explosion ripped through the reinforced material, and the sudden pressure change disrupted the Nithra's breathing systems. The fighting was intense but brief. Within 20 minutes, Alina stood in the Nithra's command center, surrounded by the unconscious forms of their leadership. "Zara, get on their communication system. Let's see if Serena's theory works." The technician worked feverishly at the alien console, interfacing their prepared commands with the Nithris quantum network. "I think I've got it," she said finally. Broadcasting now. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. In London, Paris, Beijing, Moscow, and dozens of other occupied cities, resistance teams captured Nithris facilities. The compound proved devastatingly effective, and the coordinated attack left the aliens with no safe haven to regroup. Through the captured communication system, Elena broadcast a message to all Nithris ships in orbit. "Your ground forces have been neutralized. We control your command centers and communication network. Withdraw from Earth orbit immediately, or we will extend this attack to your fleet." It was partly a bluff. They weren't yet certain they could deliver the compound to the orbiting ships. But the Nithris, facing an unprecedented defeat and unable to contact their ground forces, began to retreat. One by one, the massive vessels moved away from Earth, beyond the moon's orbit where they held position, waiting. 3 days later, Elena stood in what had once been the United Nations General Assembly, now filled with resistance leaders and liberated government officials. The Nithris commander, Vexthal, had been captured alive and stood under heavy guard. "You have surprised us," the alien admitted, its voice weaker than in previous broadcasts. "No species has ever reversed a Nithris conquest." Elena approached the towering being without fear. "You made a fundamental error. You judged us by our technology, not our nature. Humans don't accept domination. We never have throughout our own history, and we certainly won't from another species." Vexthal's amber eyes studied her with new respect. "What will you do now? Exterminate us as we would have done to you?" "No," Elena replied. "That's another difference between us. We're offering terms. Your fleet will leave our solar system and never return. You will provide reparations in the form of technology transfers to help us rebuild, and you will release any other species currently under Nithris control. And if we refuse—" Elena smiled coldly. "We've adapted your compound to work on your ships. We've captured your transmission technology. And now we know how your faster-than-light drives function. If you force us to come to your worlds, we will." The message was transmitted throughout the galaxy. The Nithris, for the first time in their 1,000-year expansion, retreated in the face of resistance. Within weeks, reports came in of uprisings on other subjugated worlds as news of Earth's victory spread. 1 year after the Nithris invasion, humanity launched its first diplomatic vessel, equipped with technology reverse-engineered from their former conquerors. Captain Elena Reeves commanded the mission to establish contact with other species and build a coalition of free worlds. As Earth receded behind them, her first officer remarked, "The Nithras never understood what they were dealing with, did they?" "No," Elena replied, watching the stars grow brighter as they left atmosphere. "They thought they were the predators. We proved them wrong." In the vastness of space, word was spreading about the humans, a species that had done the impossible. They had not merely survived the Nithras. They had defeated them. And now they were venturing outward, not to conquer, but to connect. The galaxy would never be the same.